Hi, I'm Evan Troxel, co-host of the Archispeak podcast, and you are listening to U.S. Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. I'm Tom Guild. Carol and Dan Price stepped in to save architect Victor Lundy's Bellaire, Texas home just weeks before demolition, and today we'll hear their story. Erin DiFazio champions the architectural heritage of Sarasota, Florida. And owner Joel Disend shares his 1959 Edward Durell Stone house in New Canaan, Connecticut. Then, from teen idol to chart topper to pro basketball team owner, our musical guest today is the great Pat Boone, with a career spanning 7 decades. And now your host, with a podcast career spanning 2 decades, Mr. Modernism, George Smart.
Thanks, Tom. Can you believe it? This show kicks off the 12th year of U.S. Modernist Radio. We've had over 750 guests spanning the globe and some great shows. The Ferris Bueller House, where we dove into the architecture of the famous glass-walled garage, ending in serenading the homeowner with Dankeschön.
In a way, yes.
Our recurring Children of Genius series heard from children and grandchildren of icons like Saarinen, Frank Lloyd Wright, Mies, and Neutra, learning what it was like to grow up with a famous creative parent. What was it like to have a genius forget to pick you up from soccer practice?
Aww.
We found out. We've done countless remotes, poolside, with martinis, from Palm Springs, the epicenter for mid-century modern, plus New York, Phoenix, L.A., London, Sarasota, and New Canaan. We were there at the opening of the TWA Hotel at JFK Airport, a victory lap for modernism. Throughout the 12 years, you can practically hear the excitement in the air and the occasional clinking of glasses, showcasing the podcast's ability to take listeners inside the most exclusive spaces in the country, in this case, without a boarding pass. And in 2026, we've got renewed energy and backing to seek out even more fun guests and musical guests as we come to you every Monday. Stay tuned. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by the Brent R. Harris Charitable Trust, restorer of several modernist houses, including Richard Neutra's Kaufman Desert House in Palm Springs, and by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Palm Springs, Toronto, Los Angeles, and Malibu.
Architect Victor Lundy graduated from the Harvard School of Architecture.
Go Crimson!
In the late 1940s, studying under Walter Gropius. He made his mark first in Sarasota, Florida, and later in New York and Houston. Some of his notable projects include the 1956 Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, the 1957 Sarasota Alta Vista Elementary School, the 1957 Bee Ridge Presbyterian Church, also in Sarasota, Bubble Pavilions for the 1964 New York World Fair, the First Unitarian Church in Westport, Connecticut, and a building the classicists love to hate, the U.S. Tax Court Building in Washington, D.C. Last year, his amazing modernist house was purchased and queued up for teardown, but Carol and Dan Price stepped up to save it just weeks before demolition. Dan is a philosophy professor at the University of Houston.
Go Cougars!
And Carol's an architectural historian and board member of Preservation Houston. They don't plan to live in the house themselves, but instead will offer it to visiting artists, scholars, or rentals. Here's George's conversation with Carol and Dan Price.
Dan and Carol, thanks for coming on the show.
Of course.
Thank you for having us.
So you are now the proud owners of Victor Lundy's house at 701 Mulberry Lane. When did you first know that the house even existed?
That's a great question because it's new to me. I learned about it less than a year ago with a Preservation Houston / Houston Mod open house, Realtors open house, when it was for sale after Mr. Lundy had passed away. And when I walked into it, it was so magical. It was a 2-day open house that I asked my husband, Dan, to come in the next day and take a look too, just so we could walk around it.
And did you feel the magic, Dan?
I did. It's really quite an amazing kind of space. So as you walk in, It just kind of opens up to the light. It's just really very, very warm. It's like very welcoming. Kind of felt like you're going into this kind of interesting garden space at the same time that you're entering a house.
What was the reception from the community to the house going on the market? Were there a lot of people interested in it?
Yes, I think that Preservation Houston said it was one of the more well-attended open houses that they had had. We, of course, it's a small town in Houston, even though it's a giant city, saw some friends and acquaintances there that we didn't expect to see. And we felt that the reception was wide-ranging.
Although I think that was actually the second open house that they had had, and the house was already under contract at that time.
Now, how does modernism appeal to the two of you?
Well, modernism is just this big open question for me about like how to think about the optimism of the kind of last century, like what it was that they thought really architecture could do for people's lives. And if you think of everything from Frank Lloyd Wright's Usonians to this kind of Victor Lundy house, it's like something where it fit into a life without dominating it, making it possible to have a kind of different experience of the space. And I've always just thought that was really fascinating. I thought that kind of modernist gestures and art and philosophy were always very interesting to me. So architecture is a part of that.
Did you live in a modernist house already?
We live in a house from 1924 that was kind of more, if you know John Staub's work, that person named Birdsall Briscoe designed our house back then. And he was not really a modernist, but I was obviously aware of that kind of movement, a little bit more like Lutyens or someone like that.
So when you walked into the Lundy house, were you thinking about buying it for yourselves and moving in?
No, I didn't think about moving in. I just thought that this magical space that Dan and I are talking about was worth being preserved. So we bought it without a job for it. And it seems silly to have it as a vacation home. It's about 5 miles from our house in the middle of Houston. And so we don't know what we're going to do with it yet.
We've already had a couple of people say they'd like to rent it if we get back.
Smart people have asked us.
You're skipping over a lot of steps here between seeing it and owning it. So let's rewind the tape. Okay. So you're at this place. You've seen it. You really like it. Do you bid on it at that time? What happens next? Walk me through the series of events.
The first day we asked about bidding on it, and we were told that it was already under contract.
Oh, okay.
That was when we were told that it was under contract by someone who presumably was going to preserve the house.
Okay.
Which was kind of our main goal, was that it be preserved. And so we didn't fight for it at that point.
And then at what point did you learn that this party was not going to preserve the house?
Pretty recently, in early October, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Preservation community was murmuring about the fact that this, the man
Weren't
who
they
had
buzzing?
purchased it,
I think they were buzzing.
They were buzzing, indeed. There was a lot of buzzing about how the man who had said he was going to save the house and live in it with his family turned out to have 4 small children, and maybe was a little disingenuous, maybe just was a dreamer, but it didn't seem like it was going to work for him. And so he ruefully was going to have to demolish the house to put a bigger house on the large lot. And so if only a preservation angel might arise, it would be such a relief. This is not news in Houston. As you probably know, we have sort of a tear down culture. It's very development friendly. And so houses that are beloved are often lost. So that being on our minds, it's a good source of conversation at the dinner table. So we've been talking about how beautiful the house was and why it was so beautiful. So we decided that after looking at our checkbook and thinking about, we just both had a big birthday and we're thinking a little bit about our legacy. We just decided that maybe we would just be that preservation angel and try to do it anonymously. We didn't really want anybody to know that we were buying it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yes, exactly. So,
and now you're on a podcast.
There we go.
Dan, you can talk about the part about how we actually got possession from the previous owner, because he didn't really want to sell it.
Well, it just went through a couple of steps. We made an offer and he turned it down. And then kind of the buzz in the architectural community got him feeling like he wanted to reassess it. And he came back with a counter offer that was a little bit higher. And we were willing to do that at that point because we'd gotten kind of emotionally involved. And the way to think about the Lundy house that kind of got us over the finish line on buying it was that it is a piece of art. I know lots of modernist houses in the Houston area, and I know a lot of houses that have been torn down in places like Bellaire, where this is, where the whole street is filled with 8,000 square foot homes with no real thoughtfulness into how they move. Like you go in, they might have big glass windows at the back looking out over the swimming pool, but they don't really have a sense of flow through the house. And they don't really have a sense for the light entering into the house. The Lundy house that we've got has these clear stories that are just incredibly well implemented. And then a back window that faces towards the north and west, but with this curve that matches or kind of complements the curve that comes off of his wife's studio. And it just does it in this way that is really, really experienced as kind of a movement through this light-filled space. And you go over to some of the neighbors and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of light, but it's cramped and you're kind of moving in and out of overly articulated spaces because everything has this purpose and everything's been designated by the architect to be X, Y, or Z. What happens in that space is it's just a little bit more inviting and warm. We had the great privilege of going to see the glass house, Philip Johnson's glass house last year, which is just, an incredible experience, but it's boxy, right?
Right.
There's kind of some similar components to going into the Lundy house where you're just like, it's not boxy anymore. You've got this kind of invitation to move through the space as opposed to just being kind of like, oh, well, it's almost like I'm outside, right?
It's hard to figure out even where we would put any furniture in since we've only seen it with no furniture in it at all. It's just so beautiful. We kind of like tempting just to keep it empty, but of course that's unrealistic. So.
Yeah, there's a fireplace in one side that he's made a special light box at the top of the fireplace so that throughout the day it catches light in different ways. And it's just very aesthetically pleasing. And you just watch it over time as it flashes down the fireplace.
Yeah, it looks like Mr. Lundy never put any artwork himself over his fireplace because of what Dan said, that just catches the light. You could just watch this wall as the light changes. It's gorgeous, gorgeous.
Lundy lived there almost 40 years. So what did you discover when you bought it that's now got to be fixed?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why we were able to purchase this house is because we asked a contractor friend of ours that we trust to take a look. So we have a little bit of an assessment. It's actually less dire than we were thinking.
FEMA rules, because it was involved in a small flood back with Harvey, it had 4 or 5 inches of water in the bottom. FEMA rules are if we go over a certain percentage of the price assessed of the house, we have to raise the house. And we're still looking at what that would mean and what that would entail. It's on a slab, and we're not even sure the slab might be on piers, but all of his plans are in the Library of Congress, which is closed because of the shutdown. So we haven't been able to get the engineering plans. We're not quite sure how hard it would be to raise it up. It's also possible that we could do some things to mitigate the water that were a little less expensive than trying to raise it up. Short of that, the rest of the construction is really quite good. The roof has very minor leaks that are easy to address. There's a little bit of rotting in the glue laminated plywood that's been used in places. Shouldn't be too hard to replace. There's a little bit of water damage on some of the cabinets, but not much.
Now, have you been surprised by all the publicity and public reaction to this house?
A little bit surprised, yeah. I think that previous owner was even more surprised at how much people cared about it. It's like,
Yes.
Where has this house shown up in the media?
We had both the Houston Chronicle and its free sister, chron.com, ask us for comments about it. They were very pleased. I think they were excited to have some good news to report.
Donna sent us this architecture website that wrote it up.
Yes, that's right. Steve Curry, I think, as well. Both Donna Catchmore and Steve Curry have kept us up to date with how relieved the preservation community nationally is about this, which is unexpected. And I'm pleased that everyone else is pleased.
It did not make national news in the kind of same way. No. It's local color.
I would think it would be one of those great, human interest stories they do at the end of the nightly news at one of the local stations.
I think so, especially in light of the East Wing of the White House at the exact same time. There's that too, right?
Yeah.
We have heard about the irony of those two things happening at the same time. One saved and one not saved.
The competing architecture news.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, I'm glad to know the two of you are not going to be building a ballroom on the site. That's comforting.
Well, we haven't actually decided on final plans. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's got a large backyard. We would hope you would come down and see it. Actually, I didn't ask you. Have you seen it? Have you come to Houston to see it?
I saw it when we interviewed Victor.
Okay.
Through the Zoom that we had at the time, but I haven't actually set foot in it. I would love to do that.
Oh, we invite you to come down anytime you'd like.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Especially with no furniture in it. I'm telling you, it's like a light box. It's gorgeous.
It's zoned residential, so we can't put up a ballroom, but
a private ballroom, just not a public one.
Right. Privately funded ballroom on Mulberry Lane.
Yes. The lots are large and beautiful. The last owner removed all of the landscaping that was there. So really it's easier to see the Lundy house now because it's pretty much just grass with this modernist house rising off of it.
Okay.
Which is a little jarring. I mean, it's lovely for the house, but there's nothing like a little soft landscaping around things to soften the hard edges.
Yeah, Carol's a gardener, so I think we're going to end up with a lot of garden space out there. So.
Especially since it's low-lying, we'll be having some swales and some the kind of plants that soak up water. We'll be working in that direction.
Well, on behalf of Modernists everywhere, I just have to thank you both for stepping in and saving this house because clearly it was headed for destruction.
Yeah.
Yes. Even if we might have overpaid a little bit for it, it's worth it because every day I go over there and I take a friend in the daytime because there's no water and no electricity. I fall in love with the house again, and so does whoever I'm standing next to, whether they know anything about architecture or not. It's just this really special house.
And I imagine you're going to have a lot of people who are going to want to rent it once you get it fixed up.
We might have to have a couple of nice dinners there before we give it to someone else to live in.
Yeah.
And apparently Victor Lundy was a big thrower of parties. And so.
Oh,
yes,
right.
We have some pictures of some lovely parties from Donna and some other folks. It's really fun to see it lived in since we've only seen it empty.
Well, I'm sure you'll get some of those photos and put them up on the wall. There can be a little shrine to Victor Lundy.
I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to meet him, but I love his book. And it's been fun talking to Donna Kashmar about what he and his wife are like. So we feel like we knew him a little bit.
I like the idea of getting pictures of his other work and stuff, too.
Yeah.
You can hear our interview with Victor Lundy and one with Donna Kashmar in our previous episodes. Carol and Dan, thank you so much for joining me. This has been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on down.
George was talking with Carol and Dan Price. Erin DiFazio is dedicated to preserving the architecture of Sarasota, from old Florida cottages to mid-century modernism. She co-founded and managed DiFazio Services, LLC, a licensed general contracting firm in New Haven, Connecticut. Relocating to Florida, she became a real estate agent with a special interest in preservation. Now she is executive director of the Sarasota Alliance for Historic Preservation, managing everything: advocacy, research, easements, loan programs, and technical support. It's an important job because Sarasota loses about 15 historic structures a week. So today we welcome the star of the Albany Academy High School production of A Tinker's Autumn. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, did you grow up in New Haven?
No, I didn't. Actually, I didn't really grow up in any one place. I moved around so much when I was a kid because my stepfather worked for GE, so we would get transferred almost every year. So I felt like house hunting was a full-time
occupation,
activity growing up.
Well, but it wasn't your job to find the house, right?
No.
It was your parents', I hope?
It was, yes. But, you know, what's interesting is that now, 40 years later, I still vividly remember some of the places that we just saw, you know, in passing.
Huh.
So it's really one of the things that stuck with me is the impression that a building can have on you.
That's
Even
right.
if you're only there for a very short period of time, 15, 20 minutes. To this day, I still remember the way I felt standing in some of those spaces. So
it's follow you into adulthood. Yep.
it did.
And you're a hands-on girl here. You know how to fix these things, right?
I do. I don't do as much of the hands-on anymore, but certainly in the early years, we did a lot of hands-on restoration. We had an 1890s beautiful 3-story house in Connecticut on the Quinnipiac River that we restored, and that was a really fun project.
What kind of projects did your contracting firm do in New Haven?
So we did mostly historic restoration projects, but and repairs. They were of varying sizes because it was during the recession. So during that time, most of what we did was repair work and things that had to be done. But then as people kind of came out of that economic slump, they started doing more creative restoration work and larger properties and things like that.
So you weren't involved in a restoration of the Tom Guild historic birthplace in Hamden, Connecticut, were you?
Not that I remember.
That's where I was born.
You were born in Hamden. We did do some work in Hamden.
Yeah, well,
But
moved away when I was 6, but...
Isn't there a highway marker on the road near that memorial?
Yeah, I'll be putting one up soon.
Now, Erin, what brought you to Sarasota, Florida?
It was a family decision because my ex-husband had arthritis and needed to live in a warm climate. So he said, we're moving to Florida. So I said, okay, but I get to pick where. And I did a lot of research. We'd been to the East Coast many times visiting family and things like that. But I picked Sarasota because Sarasota has history. It has a Montessori education. In one of my former lives, I was a Montessori teacher. And I knew that Montessori education was really important to me for my son. And then also having restaurants where vegan people could eat was another big priority. So I kind of found the cultural promise of Sarasota and its historic buildings to be what lured me here.
And what year was that about?
2015.
2015, okay.
Was when we actually moved.
Now, although you're the new director for the Sarasota Alliance for Historic Preservation, you've been an invaluable volunteer for years. So how did you first connect with the organization?
Well, I joined the Alliance when I started to see all of the places that I loved the most in Sarasota disappearing. My favorite cafe down in Laurel Park, suddenly, poof, it was gone. And no one seemed to be doing anything to stop these demolitions. So I did some research and talked to a bunch of people and was put in touch with the Sarasota Alliance, and they let me on the board. So I joined the board, and I was on the board it was my very first board experience. I had never been a board member before. I was on the board for a number of years before they made me the president, and then I stepped down from being president so that they could make me staff.
Okay.
And now I am the sole staff person.
Oh, so you gave yourself a demotion in a way?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, I think
Except
I
she
did.
gets paid now, Tom. That's the benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all a matter of perspective.
I'm proof that if you show up and just keep doing the work, eventually they will pay you for it. So
The Sarasota Alliance has a wonderful program called 6 to Save, which you do every year, which highlights 6 structures in Sarasota that need saving. So tell me a little bit about this year's roundup.
on the 6 to Save for 2025 is one very important building downtown is the U.S. Garage building, which was built in the 20s as the very first garage building and was converted by Frank Folsom Smith later into an office space, but it was a beautiful restoration that he did. And that is threatened by new construction, which is using the new Live Local bill, meaning that in the state of Florida, there's no opportunity for the local municipality to say no to the demolition and construction of a building that has affordable housing or attainable housing units in it. So that's one of them. The other thing is the Blackburn Point Bridge in Osprey, which is a very early swing bridge. I'm pretty sure that it is the last swing bridge in the state of Florida.
What is a swing bridge?
Most of them have been updated.
Yeah, what is a swing bridge?
A swing bridge it sits low to the water, and then when the boats need to pass through, there's someone in the little house that monitors it, and it actually rotates. So the whole bridge turns to move out of the way so that the boats can pass through.
Like 90 degrees sort of turn?
Yeah, railroads
Yes.
use this a lot over waterways.
That's a swing bridge. Okay.
Okay, cool.
That sounds like it's mechanically complex.
It is mechanically complex, yes, and it requires human participation in its functioning as opposed to some of the more modern bridges. And it is only one lane, so it does limit the flow of traffic on and off of Casey Key, which has probably helped to preserve it a bit, actually.
Are there any modernist structures endangered down there now?
There absolutely are. The Warner House, which was built in, I believe it's 1959, that is on the market again. It was purchased a year ago by an architect who swore that he was going to save it. Nothing was done, and then eventually it just popped up again on the market. So
he saved it for somebody else to either demolish or save?
Yeah, but unfortunately, in the meantime, it had been occupied until he purchased it, and now it's been sitting vacant for over a year. So,
oh, that's bad.
Yes.
It's never good when a house goes vacant.
No, especially in Florida.
Is there another one besides that one?
Yeah, last year there was a very small building, commercial building by Victor Lundy. It's a 1957 building, and it's called the Joe Barth Insurance Company. It's still currently occupied, but it is on the site of a proposed major redevelopment downtown. So we are working with the owners to try to encourage them to utilize the new transfer of development rights program that the city has to preserve the building while still economically meeting their needs and transferring some of that buildable square footage over to the new construction.
So it's kind of a land swap, if you will, in terms of the rights to develop to make the deal work.
Exactly. Moving it from where it's going to demolish a really important building to use the space on a vacant lot.
Now, one very important building in Sarasota, and I think it's where I met you for the first time, Erin, is the Van Wezel downtown.
Yes.
Which has been under threat for quite a while. Tell our listeners about the history of that building and where it stands now.
The Van Wezel was created because the Sarasota community wanted to have a performing arts hall. And they brought in Taliesin architects, created the Van Wezel. It has this beautiful lavender purple color, which apparently was chosen by Frank Lloyd Wright's wife.
Olga Vanna.
Oh, yes, Olga Vanna. Love it or hate it, no one forgets the purple. So the building it is located very close to the bay. It's right on the bayfront. And it has sweeping views of the water, incredibly placed. But for years, the Bay Park, which it sits in, has been undergoing a redevelopment. And as part of that, the city determined that it wanted to create a new performing arts hall. And the threat of obsolescence has created a lot of concern among the community that the Van Wezel will not be protected in the future.
Did they want to build a new one to make it bigger?
There was a huge one, and they were going to tear down this one. And one thing the listeners need to know, if they can look this up too, is that the Van Wezel is located on an enormous piece of property. So you could have both very easily because this new arena would be for like big concert and events.
Yes.
And the Van Wezel would be for more intimate kinds of gatherings, which you can't always do in a giant arena.
Exactly. It's cost prohibitive. So there's more than enough room to do both. And given the proximity to the bay and the concern about rising tide, it might make sense to use a different location for the new large performing arts center. But the Van Wezel will have been storm hardened for a very reasonable amount of investment that the city actually already has. So we're hoping that the city will continue to follow the recommendation of the appointed committee. It was the Purple Ribbon Committee, to proceed with storm hardening of the structure and pursue National Register designation. So the Alliance participated in a collaboration of other organizations around the county and the city to do a National Register nomination.
And so is the Van Wezel out of the woods yet as far as being endangered?
I would like to say yes, but knowing Sarasota, not yet.
Okay.
No.
Now, there are other organizations in the area that work in historic preservation, one of them being Architecture Sarasota, which we know with Marty Hilton and all the modernists down there.
Yes.
So how do you guys sort of figure out who does what with preservation in Sarasota?
That's a great question. Marty and I talk about this all the time, actually, about where the split lies, because they do focus on the legacy of the Sarasota school buildings, and they do participate in a lot more of the education and design advocacy, and their mission has been growing. And so we've talked about the fact that so any building before modern era, is the responsibility of the Alliance to advocate for. But in general, we hold an ability to perform really grassroots level advocacy work that they do not.
Okay.
So because they have a lot of relationships with modern builders and designers and architects and things, sometimes they can't stick their neck out to say no when a project threatens a historic structure. So the Alliance has the ability to really advocate for these structures when they're threatened. And we can get political if we need to. And we can get attorneys involved if we need to.
Now, your organization is involved with preservation easements, right?
Yes.
So I always tell people that preservation easements are like a homeowners association for one house. It really helps guide that for the future. Or soup for one, like old Campbell's soup. It's just kind of soup for one. So are modernist homeowners starting to put preservation easements on their houses to preserve them, or have they caught on to this yet?
They have not caught on to it yet, but we are working together in a collaboration to really continue to educate them about the importance of preserving their homes with a legal document, because the notion of modernist spaces being historic is something that needs education, because they consider, if this was built in my lifetime, it's not historic. So starting there and letting them know the importance of keeping these buildings present in the future for future generations, and the fact that, as you said, an easement is the only way to do that. We have begun to make some progress, but we have yet to get an easement on a modernist building.
Well, anything we can do to help you with that, please let me know, because we're a huge fan of easements. And most people don't understand that the things they think are going to preserve a house have no legal enforcement whatsoever. Like being on the National Register doesn't count. Having a local designation doesn't count. Being designed by a famous architect doesn't count. I mean, none of it really matters. Anybody can buy that house and just wipe it out with a demolition permit. But these easements carry on forever, and you all are kind of the guardians, the holders of the easements for these other structures. So I think it would be amazing if we can kind of get the engine going here to get some modernist homeowners down there to get preservation easements.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic.
I would think that Architecture Sarasota would be very much behind this too.
Yes. And it is something that we've been working on. We collaborated on a presentation event during last season, and we'll be doing some similar events this year.
Oh, that's cool. We have a video on our newsletter that comes out every week, which talks about preservation easements in North Carolina that people can watch, kind of to understand the nuance of it. And it's a lot less complicated than it sounds. It's just a document that you file with the local county. You can get an attorney to write it up very quickly. It doesn't have to be a long, complicated process. And, if it's a house that you really care about, it's something that you want to protect forever, it's a great way to go. So thank you so much for being the guardian down there and managing these easements for all the historic structures.
It's really important, and easements are not widely used in the state of Florida. The Florida Trust does hold a couple of easements. There's one in Sarasota, but it's not something that is widely known or accepted. So it's taken a lot to educate the public on what that is and what it means and why it's important. But it is starting to take hold. I was leaving a neighborhood workshop recently, and I had someone pull me aside and say, you know what they need to do? They need to put an easement on that property.
Oh,
yeah.
And I was like, oh, the choir's preaching to me. This is fantastic.
Oh, that is really great.
Yeah, it was really exciting.
Now, something that is kind of coming to Sarasota, although it's been around already, is this idea of air rights to buildings.
Yes.
And using that as a tool. So explain how that works.
So in areas like downtown Sarasota, through our zoning mechanism, so it's a planning mechanism, we have created these zones where the potential building height and density so far exceeds the existing structures that you have basically created an economic incentive for their demolition.
Yeah.
Our downtown is all zoned for 10 to 18 stories. And most of our downtown was 1, 2, maybe 3-story buildings. So the potential profit that a developer could make off of demolishing a 1-story building and building an 18-story building is too much incentive to combat with do the right thing. We love our historic buildings. So we needed to find a way to create more of an economically incentivized level playing field.
Are there any skyscrapers in Sarasota yet, downtown?
There are quite a few. And if you drive on our bayfront, you won't recognize it. You can no longer see the water. The bay is totally cut off by private luxury condos. It's also blocking the sun and the breeze, unfortunately. So it's hotter downtown, and there's permanent canyons, where you...
Right. It's hotter and darker.
You have the height on either side.
Well, let's get back to the air rights. So let's say I've got a 1-story building next to a 20-story building. So how do the air rights work in that situation?
Essentially, what you would do is just go to the city to get a confirmation letter of what the excess buildable square footage and density is that you have not used. And that is what you could potentially sell. That's registered with the city, and they hopefully will maintain a database of all of those potential sending sites. That property will be protected with a protective covenant, like an easement in perpetuity. And then the air rights essentially can be purchased and utilized in the construction of another building. But they can only add up to a maximum of 2 additional stories. So there's a height bonus.
Okay.
But there's a cap on that. And it's a 1-for-1.
So they can still destroy the 1-story building, but they can break... No, they can't.
No, because that building, the sending site is protected with a covenant.
Okay.
And in the code, it also states that their new construction, wherever they're doing it, cannot damage a historic building.
Okay.
So
I guess I'm not seeing how this works for the developer. If they can't tear down the building, then what are the air rights that they're buying?
They're buying the ability to create something bigger and with more units.
Oh, I see. So their existing building gets taller.
Yes. Whatever they're planning to build.
Got it.
And it's not even the square footage or the height. What they really want is the residential dwelling units.
Okay.
We have a really low density for the downtown area, and that has resulted in these enormous condominiums that are like 5,000 square feet because they can only have, 18 units, so it's one per floor. They really need additional units.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest selling point for them, is the residential dwelling units.
Are the developers liking this idea? Are they working with you?
Yes, absolutely. I have had several developers reach out to try to understand the program. We have somebody, a very early adopter, who was starting the process before the city was even ready to, have the paperwork printed. So there's definitely an appetite for it. And the wonderful thing is that some of these builders are from other places, so they really have no qualms about protecting the historic building. In a lot of other places, they assume that it would be protected.
Yeah.
So
that's a great deal. That's a great deal for everybody there, really.
It is. It creates a win-win-win, where the community is benefiting from the preservation of these buildings. A lot of the historic buildings are owned by people who are not developers, so it creates market value for them. And then the developers get to utilize the additional square footage and density so that they can create things that actually, hopefully, service the community in a better way.
Erin, thank you so much for all your years of dedication, both volunteer and now professional. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We were talking with Erin DiFazio. Joel Disend renovated the 1959 Edward Durell Stone designed Celanese house in New Canaan, Connecticut. He restored and preserved the unique pyramid skylights and a floating staircase. Now it's for sale, and we'll hear from Joel and his agent, Inger Stringfellow of William Pitt Sotheby's International Realty. Here's George's conversation from inside the house with Joel and Inger.
Joel, I'm really entranced in coming into your house. I mean, besides the fact that it's gorgeous, you can see that such care has gone into the restoration that you did. How did you discover the house to begin with? Because it certainly wasn't in this shape before.
Well, having lived in New England for most of my adult life, one of the great tragedies is there are very few modern houses. And after I retired, I went looking for a weekend house, essentially, because I was living in New York City. And, of course, New Canaan is renowned for its modern houses, so I started looking around here. Eventually, after 2 years about thinking of it, I decided to buy this house against my better judgment.
So what was bad about the house when you encountered it?
I'll describe it as substantially renovated, but not to my taste.
Yeah.
And it really required a lot of additional work that I really wasn't prepared to get involved with. But once you get started, it's very, very hard to stop.
You can't stop.
And so I bought the house, and the next problem, well, there's always two problems. One is finding an architect, and the second is finding a good contractor. Easier the first than the second.
Who did you find for both?
Well, the fellow that had done my loft in New York City agreed to do this house, and right after I signed the papers and bought it, he told me he had to back out of the job.
Oh.
So there was a 6-month period where I went searching for an architectural firm. I found one in New York City. It became quite clear to me that I was going to be unhappy. And subsequently, I hired a person that was working there to finish the job. Who turned out to be exceptionally competent. His name is Nicholas Karatinos, and he practices in Greenwich, New York City, and Athens, Greece.
And who did you get for your contractor?
I will not name the contractor.
Okay.
The contractor proved to be incredibly disappointing. We put out bids for 3 contractors, one of whom was clearly excellent, but his price was over 100% more than the next quote down, so I took the middle person. I thought we had done our due diligence and found out to my dismay that regardless of our diligence, it didn't work out well.
So when you started the project, What were the biggest things that had to be done first?
Well, the first thing was to take care of the interior of the house. The exterior of the house was in good shape. The interior of the house needed work in terms of satisfying my own living style. It was also clear that the entire landscaping had to be done because there really was no landscaping left on the house. A couple had lived here for 50 years. The estate had sold the house to another person who had started on the house and renovated it and never got around to landscaping the property.
Yeah, there was a kind of weird driveway situation.
There was a very weird driveway situation. It went on a diagonal from the main road straight to the front door, which was also a problem because the house sits below the street level, and if it rained very hard, you had to worry about runoff.
Now, two important features of the house, which make it unique, really, I think, in America, is you've got these pyramidal skylights in the top and this lattice work around the house. Tell me about those features.
All right. Well, the skylights are probably the most interesting thing. In the first place, aesthetically, from the outside, the house looks great. At night, it looks like a lantern. It's pretty amazing. But more importantly, on the inside of the house, you are completely aware of the four seasons. You're aware of the sun, the moon, the stars. You can literally see the sky through the skylights at night. And even on a stormy day, it's always really quite interesting. And it is complementary to the sliders that are in the walls. So there's light coming from above and from the sides.
My practical wife would ask the question, how often do you have to clean them?
Well, the skylights I have washed once a year, which is sufficient because they're pyramidal, and if it rains, it tends to wash the skylights.
Go right off?
Right.
Okay. Now tell me about the lattice work.
The lattice work, of course, is Edward Durell Stone's signature. I've seen many of his other properties, and especially in Delhi and in India, where he did the U.S. Embassy. He had really interesting lattice work. I've seen his lattice work on his townhouse in New York City and so on. It's a very controversial feature, I would say. Some people think it's fantastic and other people don't like it at all, but I think it really makes the house much more interesting.
I've never quite understood the controversy with that particular feature, why it evokes such strong emotions. Do you have any idea?
I do, but I won't publicly announce them.
Okay. Inger, you have sold many, many modernist houses in the New Canaan area. What makes this house so special?
Well, I think its uniqueness with the light as you come in. I think it's a magical feel from the time as you walk in the door. And I think the extraordinary details of how it was renovated, from the floating sheetrock to just the aesthetics of it, is truly unique. And just even how it allows the natural daylight into some of the rooms, interior rooms.
So explain for our listeners what floating sheetrock is, because I imagine for someone that doesn't know, they're just imagining some sort of sci-fi thing where the walls are up in the air. What is it really?
Well, in traditional homes, you bring the sheetrock down to the floor, and then they'll put a molding in to sort of mask any imperfections. And there's actually a layer, I think, maybe Joel can correct me, that goes up underneath, and then it's brought down so there's a very thin reveal. And the precision, it has to be 100%. There's no hiding any errors in it. It's incredible.
And what it does is give a great sort of level of detail around the entire house that it pulls together almost like a theme.
Exactly.
And you can see, for example, in some of the walls behind you, you've got these other reveals that are very similar.
They're carried out throughout some of the openings, etc. Yeah.
In short, what is New Canaan's history with modernist houses? Why are there so many here?
Well, I think to begin with, the land was cheap. It was within commuting distance to New York City by railroad. And I think the architects who came here appreciated the topography. You know, it wasn't just flat. And so Elliot Noyes, I think, was the first one who came up here, and he brought some of his colleagues with him, and we became sort of a colony, and they were what is known as the Harvard Five. And then John Black Lee sort of came along. He's often perceived as the sixth of the Harvard Five. But they were a group of very talented second-tier architects who all settled and had their practice here.
It's kind of like those guys that were associated with the Beatles but never made it into the Beatles. Joel, what kind of person is going to thrive in this house?
I would say that anyone who likes light and space and appreciates the feeling of the house. It's very serene inside, and it also brings you to the outside, brings the outside into the house. So someone who likes a Zen feeling, I think would really appreciate the house.
And you originally envisioned this as a weekend house, right?
Yes.
But you're here full time now?
Yes. Well, except for a couple of days a week, yes.
Okay. All right.
COVID did that.
COVID did that. So you did the COVID winter in this house?
Oh, yes.
Right? And I guess that made things pretty easy to be here in that situation.
Yes, it was. And it was because the house has such an optimistic feeling attached to it. It was very, very helpful in keeping our psychology copacetic through the COVID situation.
This house has an interesting history, as it wasn't commissioned by a person, but it was commissioned by a company. Tell me about that.
When I bought the house, the person that had renovated it after the estate sold it wanted to bring the house back to how it was when the Celanese people first did it. And I did not particularly care for that, because one thing that you found were linoleum tiles on the floor, which was a big Celanese product, etc. So a lot of the features that were used to sell Celanese products I removed.
Okay.
In order to enhance the quality of the materials.
But originally, the idea of a demonstration house by Celanese was to show off all their product line and how it could be beautifully incorporated into modernist design.
Correct. But I saw the original pictures. It was in, I think, House and Garden magazine when it first came out, and it was a wonderful advertisement of their products, mostly attributable to Stone's ingenuity. For example, all the pyramids have a feature which it's hard to describe, but basically they're planters underneath the skylights that plants were growing out of. So when you walked in, you were immediately saw an enormous amount of natural greenery. And the fact that there was natural greenery throughout the interior of the house, which also connected to the exterior of the house, because there were these sliders that took you straight to the outside. Also, the original house had a courtyard. So you, virtually everywhere you looked, you were somewhere outside in this house when it was originally constructed. The courtyard is now gone. It's basically the kitchen.
Okay.
It was a fascinating advertisement, so to speak, for their product line. The pictures also indicated a lot of furnishings in this house, and the house is not that large, and the furnishings were quite heavy, and I think they represented what the late 50s and early 60s were in so-called modern furniture, which were not to my taste, but was really very, very well done, as you would expect.
Now, why did companies build demonstration houses like this? What were they trying to show off besides their product?
In the good old days of the 50s, and I'm certainly old enough to remember them, there was a strong period of optimism in America, particularly we were sitting on top of the world after the Second World War. The rest of the world was destroyed, and we here in the United States were living extremely well, relatively speaking. It was a period of great optimism, and I think that the company was attempting to display that spirit. And there's a huge amount of new construction during that period in the country, and people were building lots of houses, lots of housing tracts, and so on. So it was a great way to, I think, show off their product.
Did it work? I mean, did like linoleum sell out really well at that point?
Based on my childhood, it did.
And was that their main product, the Celanese people?
No.
What else did they make?
I think they made insulation, almost all the things that you normally don't see in a house, but you have to have them in order to, waterproof materials and things of that nature.
Now, were they into that magic ingredient of the time, asbestos?
I could not tell you.
Inger, when you're showing a house like this, how do people take it in?
Well, I think typically I would say most of the people are pretty educated who come to see this and have done some prior research. I try to give them a little bit of background. I also think this, as you let them walk in the door, you let them sort of experience the feeling of the house before you start talking too much, and pointing out the details. But as I say, most of them are pretty educated and have already done a little bit of research about what it is. I think this house in particular, not only the history, but just the whole feeling of it, there's a tranquility to it, and the light is absolutely magical. And I think that's one of the things that people are impressed with.
Have you ever noticed when people go into a modernist house, a couple particularly, that one of them just falls into a trance and you can't talk to them, they just kind of are in their own heads wandering about?
I think frequently, there are people who are very acutely aware of the details. It tends to be more men than women who notice the details. And often it's hard because you get one who goes in one direction and you got to try and maneuver the both of them. And that's true in typical houses too. You have a husband who goes right down to the basement, and then the wife goes to the master bedroom to check out the closet.
Do you have people that come to visit houses like this where one is just not into modernism at all and the other one is?
Yes, that does happen.
How do you bridge that gap for the one that's not into it so much?
Well, I don't know that that's really my role or I have any control
You're the
over
therapist.
that. That is very true. But there are some people who actually, they're maybe not think they're involved, would like a modern, but there's something magical that sometimes does happen where they said, wow, I really like this more than I ever thought I would. And you've got to also imagine, that people can put their own possessions in it and make it their own.
Yes. Joel, what's next for you? Is there another modernist house project?
Sadly, no. I think we'll be moving back to Manhattan where we have an apartment.
Okay. But you'll come up and visit, I hope.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
My wife likes to describe me as an excellent dilettante. And I've always had an interest in architecture and design. I could not tell you why, but I remember often going to New York because I grew up in central New Jersey, and we were an hour bus ride away from the city. And I used to hack around and go to the museums, and really had a lot of stimulation being in the New York area. But on the other hand, I grew up in the country. So I am going to miss not living in the country.
Well, it's certainly a wonderful town to be in and a great house. Thank you both for sharing this house with us.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
Good to see you.
That was George's conversation with Joel Disend and Inger Stringfellow. Now, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to meet a true icon of American music, Pat Boone. At the age of 91, he's recorded more than 2,600 songs with 6 U.S. #1 hits, a career in film, television, and radio, and even a stint as a pro basketball team owner. Pat's life has been nothing short of extraordinary. He hosts the Pat Boone Hour on Sirius XM, and here's his conversation with George Smart.
Patrick Charles Eugene Boone, I want to run a name by you. Do you remember Joyce Brent?
Oh, boy, do I? Yes. Oh, man, I was briefly in love with her. In fact, I still am. How do you fall out of love with somebody that you loved who was really a wonderful, wonderful person in your life? She was a cheerleader. She was a beautiful, I say was, I hope she's still living.
Well, you and she were the most popular kids in high school. We found your high school yearbook.
Ah, yeah. Well, that is why you can see that I, of course, remember her very well. And is she still with us?
I don't know.
We were it for each other for a while until a girl named Shirley Foley entered the picture. And she was a friend of Joyce's. And, of course, I knew Joyce's brother, Bill, who was really a terrific guy, too, as well. We were close in a Christian high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we're in love at that age and you're considering love as a very important thing, I mean, we were it for a while, but then I don't remember exactly what the circumstance was because I don't remember just falling out of love with her, but I do remember falling in love with Shirley Foley.
Well, there's your photo right there.
Oh man, I've never seen that picture. Somehow the love for Joyce Brent faded and didn't go away, but it was superseded by a love that grew.
And you married Shirley.
And I married Shirley Foley at 19 while we were still sophomores in the same Christian college and high school where I'd met Joyce. Somehow the relationship with Joyce waned to a degree, but you can see I'm still excited when you mention her name.
Yes.
And Shirley Foley Boone would understand, because that relationship was real, and it was young love. You know, you can be desperately in love when you're young, not realizing that it could fade.
Right.
Anyway, let's don't keep talking about Joyce.
Right.
And start talking about Shirley Foley.
Well, Joyce, if you're out there, please let us know. But let's shift to another thing I learned about you, Pat, and that is that your father was involved in architecture. So tell me about that.
Yes, he became an architect in the University of Florida. And as he got his degrees and would have been an up-and-coming architect in Jacksonville or Gainesville, Florida, his uncle, Jack Boone, had the Boone Contracting Company in Nashville. And so he just contacted his uncle and saying, I'm an architect now. Can you use me in the Boone Contracting Company? And so Uncle Jack, is what I always called him, said, you come up here, Archie. Archie Boone, A.A. Boone. I can tell people he's the first Boone in the phone book. You can't get ahead of A.A. Boone. And eventually, when Jack Boone retired, I was able to help Daddy buy the preponderance of the controlling stock. So Arch Boone became the architect who was running the Boone Contracting Company, which, by the way, had a wonderful reputation. In fact, so did my dad, because many people told me when Arch Boone shakes your hand and promises something, you can bet on it.
What kind of buildings did he design and build?
Houses first, and then he went to work on schools and repair things, like some wealthy people in Nashville needed to have something added to their home or to rearrange. The guy who eventually ran Kentucky Fried Chicken was one of Dad's clients. And
Harlan Sanders?
No.
Not the Colonel?
The man that ran the company after, somebody else was running the company while Harlan Sanders was still alive.
Okay.
But anyway, Daddy built an addition to that man's house, and then he built a big addition to Ward Belmont University. And then he also built, during the war, housing for soldiers and camps. He built the barracks when it was needed in the war. But eventually, he wound up building big homes and schools. My brother and I became laborers, day laborers, when Daddy was building a big hospital in Shelbyville. I think we made $1.50 or $1.25 an hour in the summertime, digging ditches, toting concrete, pushing wheelbarrows. As a day laborer, he paid us the same thing that the other laborers were paid. And it was just some great lessons for my brother and me to, in the summertime, have a job as laborers, because it was hard work, it was honest work, and you got paid honestly for a day's labor.
Well, let's hear some music from Pat. This song was written by Hoagie Carmichael, and it's a favorite in the American Songbook. It's been covered by Barbra Streisand, Annie Lennox, Sinatra, James Taylor, Keely Smith, Sheena Easton, and even the Rolling Stones. The 1956 Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong album of duets included a version of this song with Oscar Peterson on piano and Ray Brown on bass, joined by Buddy Rich on drums. The album reached #1 on the Billboard Jazz charts. Here's Pat with The Nearness of You.
It's not the pale moon that excites me, that thrills and delights me. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you. It isn't your sweet conversation that brings this sensation. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you. When you're in my arms and I feel you so close to me, all my wildest dreams come true. I need no soft lights to enchant me. If you'll only grant me the right to hold you ever so tight and to feel in the night the nearness of you. When you're in my arms and I feel you so close to me, all my wildest dreams come true. I need no soft lights to enchant me. If you'll only grant me the right to hold you ever so tight and to feel in the night the nearness of you.
Pat, I really want to be you when I grow up. You've done so many fascinating things. Ozzy Osbourne was a neighbor. You've owned a professional basketball team. You kissed Anne Margaret in State Fair. You've been in a Superman comic book, I believe, May 1959, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane. You're a descendant of Daniel Boone. I mean, it just goes on and on.
And I performed twice for the Queen of England, and I've been honored by the 10 outstanding young men. Back when I was a young man, Elvis followed me. He was one of the 10 outstanding young men the year after I was. But he was my opening act when he and I met the first time. It was at Sock Hop in Cleveland. I had my third million seller on the charts. And he had just made one record, which was not on the charts for Sun Records. It was a sort of a hillbilly country song called Blue Moon of Kentucky, Keep On Shining. Well, that was not rock and roll, but he tried to make it sound like rock and roll.
Yeah.
He was the opening act when we both appeared at the Sock Hop in October of 55. He was my warm-up act and did that song, Blue Moon of Kentucky, which the kids, I could see through the curtain, they were saying, he's cute, but what's that song? That's not rock and roll.
Yeah.
So then I went on after him, and I got all the screams that night because my third record was a million seller, as had the first two been. I was actually the star that night, and he was my warm-up act, but I had the good sense never to follow him again.
Well, let's hear one of these big hits. This song was first recorded in 1931 by Helen Rowland and the Majestic Dance Orchestra. George Hall popularized it on his radio show. Ted Black and his orchestra had the first major hit, but Pat's version was just a mega hit. Billboard ranked it as the number 2 song for 1957, and it was in your 1957 film, Bernadine, which you also did the whistling, I understand.
Yeah.
Here's Pat with Love Letters in the Sand.
On a day like today, we pass the time away, writing love letters in the sand. How you laughed when I cried each time I saw the tide take our love letters from the sand. You made a vow that you would ever be true, but somehow that vow meant nothing to you. Now my broken heart aches with every wave that breaks over love letters in the sand. Now my broken heart aches with every wave that breaks over love letters in the sand.
So, Pat, I understand that your only live performance of 2025 was last September with your daughter, Debbie. How was that for you?
Well, it was wonderful because you played Love Letters in the Sand, and she was doing her own show, which, by the way, is a vibrant, tremendous show. You're going to hear a lot more about Debbie Boone and her live performance now. And because it was being done the first time in Chicago, I was asked by the promoter if I would come in and sing a song or two with her, which I did. And I was just backstage listening to her do a fantastic show. And then she introduced me, and I came out and I sang Love Letters in the Sand. And then, then she said, would you just sing another of your songs? And I sang April Love. I was so delighted to be involved in that show and see how she had developed. Debbie still looks like a teenager herself and sings like she always did, miraculously, angelically.
Well, Pat, this has really been delightful. Thank you so much for talking with me, and here's to many more years.
Well, thank you. Okay.
Sadly, we learned after recording this interview that Joyce Brent Trevethan Sawyer passed away in 2022. She was 91.
Thanks for listening. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by the Brent R. Harris Charitable Trust, restorer of several modernist houses, including Richard Neutra's Kaufman Desert House in Palm Springs. And by Diane Bald and the Budman family, restoring significant architecture in Palm Springs, Malibu, Los Angeles, and Toronto.
Visit usmodernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation of 25,000 significant modernist houses, and access 5 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song is performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl with guest research by Bobby Morris. Got a guest to suggest for our show? Write her at bobby@usmodernist.org. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive Incorporated, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and I'll be back soon with yet another edition of U.S. Modernist Radio.